Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the first round of the new season of the eSENIORS GT3 World Championship. And we're here at the Circuit de Barcelona, Catalunya, based in the Montmeló region of Spain. It has hosted part of the 1992 Summer Olympics. It's also recently held the 2021 Spanish Grand Prix earlier on today. It's also hosted MotoGP, ELMS, the World Rallycross of Spain, but here we are for the opening round, and we have over 30 GT3 cars ready to go into battle for a 45-minute race. My name is Alex Goldschmidt, and alongside me here this evening, I'm pleased to be working with the one, the only, Cammy Sturch. Good evening, Cammy. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. How are you, Alex? Thank you for having me here.
Good to have you on board as well, Cammy. Yes, very, very good indeed. And it looks like things are going to be rather spicy. Now, this particular league is for anyone over the age of 50 and above. And the good thing is, it is about making sure that it's dedication, talent and passion that will shine through this championship. And we have a variety of different machinery. But without further ado, let's see if we can go trackside, because the 30-minute qualifying session is underway. A variety of different machinery from the car on your screens at the moment. The Porsche 911 991.2 GT3R, the Mercedes AMG, the Ferrari 488, the McLaren 720, the Bentley, amongst others, and also the Audi R8 LMS Evo. And Cammy, here at Barcelona, a very, very technical circuit, but plenty of overtaking opportunities, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, absolutely. In GT3 cars, a lot of overtaking opportunities. Not so easy in Formula 1, but much easier to do in GT3 cars with far less downforce, so there'll be more chances to overtake. As you see, it's the old version of the new corner La Caixa that's recently been reprofiled. So it's sort of last year's version of the circuit, as it were. And I think the first driver's just about to come around the last chicane to start their first flying lap. Nifosi in the 911, the red, white and green 911. Just going around New Holland now, and we'll see what lap times they're able to put on the board. We'll be looking at times in the low 1 minute 44s, I suspect.
Yeah, track temperature is at 36 degrees Celsius. It is sunshine up above in the Spanish sky, and the track is optimum. There's Mark Neuselings in the 666 Audi. He comes out of New Holland to start. So let's go on board with the Audi from Mark Neuselings as we head down the main straightaway, pulling over 250 kilometers an hour up into 6th gear. And it's just keep the car over to the left-hand side as much as you dare, but a lot of curb taken through turn 1, and then through into the left-hander at 2 before this sweeping right-hander here at 3, Cammy. And it's quite a demanding corner as well in its own right, because it really tries to set you up for the remainder of the circuit.
It does, and it will be interesting to see the differences of how the tyres wear for different cars, of those cars that have got mid-engines and those who have got their engines in the front, such as the AMG. They'll be worried about front tyre wear through the long right-hander at Renault, so that may come into play later in the race.
So we go through Worth, which is the next left-hander, and then up to Campsa, which then brings us, this will be turn 9, and taken through at about 3rd gear at 170. Neuselings runs the car out wide to the left to carry the momentum down through to La Caixa, which is the old turn 10, the old variation, down the gearbox into 1st gear, tight on the steering lock, and allow the car to drift wide to the right, but then good throughput here on the Banque Sabadell, keeping the Audi as tight to the apex as much as you possibly can through the next right-hander here at Europe Car, and then down through to the RACC chicane. And a good consistent lap here from Mark Neuselings, Cammy, but you don't want to run over that sausage curb coming out of the chicane before heading through into New Holland.
No, in usually all situations, sausage curbs are bad. It will unsettle the car, it will mean you can't get on the gas as soon as you'd like, and it just puts additional strain and wear on your front tyres. The first cars are actually getting their first flying laps completed now. Nifosi was the first to go across the line, but he was quickly trumped by Wolfschleiner with a 1 minute 44.2. more than half a second ahead of Neudlings at the moment, and then it's another 0.6 seconds gap back to Holmes in third in the Bentley. Quite surprising to see a Bentley so far up there.
Yeah, or when it's in wet weather conditions, more commonly and affectionately known as the Boatley. We've got 4 different manufacturers in the top 4, courtesy of Derek Bird, who's just gone P4. And he's currently 5 tenths up on his previous lap time, which was a 1 minute 45.693. So that puts him on aggregate to what could possibly be 4th position. Because we've got Patrizio Ongaro from Italy rounding out the top 4, and who is in the sole solitary Godzilla entrant, the Nissan Nismo GTR GT3, currently running 4th at the moment. But Derek Bird trying to look to assert himself through the latter part of the circuit, up the incline, going through into the Banque Sabadell, tight on the apex with the Porsche, and then coming down towards the further part of the circuit. And you can just see how well planted. Now, this particular car here, Cammy, the Porsche, is the heaviest in terms of weight, 1,340 kilos, dry weight for the Porsche. But Derek Bird is really he's really grabbing that car by the scruff of the neck, and as a result goes P5 on a 1 minute 45.018. So he gained a 10th in the latter part of the circuit.
I'm wondering if he was held up a little there. There was an Audi R8 that sort of had to jump out the way at the last moment, and I wonder if that cost him a little. So he could have been a little bit further up the timing.
Yeah, so Peter Wallsteiner from Austria is 3 tenths up at the moment. So this could put the Ferrari, the 196, into the high 143s. Lars Eklund, last time out in the previous championship here, was the series champion and has already put the 696 Ferrari on provisional pole with just under 23.5 minutes remaining. But Wolfschleiner will look to do his very best. And then you've got Carlo van Brabant from the US in 3rd position, the leading Porsche, followed by Mark Neutelings, and those two are within half a tenth of each other. As you can now, both these drivers, you can see Carlo in the picture in the Porsche coming through the RACC chicane, is currently up on the previous lap. Through New Holland comes the Porsche, and here's Wolfschleiner, who is also going to look to make an improvement. Van Brabant doesn't, but what does Wolfschleiner do? Oh, 19 thousandths out of the, away from the 1 minute 43 bracket. So a good turn of pace there from the Austrian, and that drops Lars Eklund to just under 2 tenths behind. So that makes it an all Maranello front row at the minute. So Craig Holmes up by about a couple of 2 to 3 tenths, which could put the Brits maybe towards the bottom part of the top 6, as you've got Jörgen Wahlby from Sweden rounding out the top 6 in the leading Aston Martin. Now, Cammy, through the Diamond Drive Cup that you've been competing in recently, you've been using the Aston Martin. How good is that car around a circuit like this?
Well, the benefit of the Aston Martin is it's a very user-friendly car, very beginner-friendly car, and I'm surprised we aren't seeing more of them at the moment. The general trend is that the Aston is very easy to handle, very easy for newcomers, and the McLaren is at the other end of the spectrum, which I'm also surprised to see a lack of at the moment. There's only the one, which is Ben Chaya, who hasn't put a hot lap in yet, but it's surprising. Yeah, so definitely Aston being also a mid-engined car, it's got a good sense of balance, but where other cars can trump it is if they've got a particularly good setup, and it'll be interesting to see which drivers come up with their own setups and which have sort of used setups from subscription services and tweaked those.
Yep, so there's Jörgen Wahlby from Sweden in the number 2 Aston Martin, rounding out the top 6 presently, and is 8 tenths up, so that could put the Aston Martin into the top 3, probably behind Lars Eklund, with at the moment Peter Wolfschleiner still leading the way. We're nearly a third through this 30-minute qualifying session for the opening round of the new season. And Valby stretches the legs on the Aston Martin. And looks like that was an invalidated lap of 1 minute 44.5 showing on that particular occasion, which would have put him around about third or fourth position. Jack Jacobs, running in the Rinaldi Racing colours, is a second up at the moment and is just over 3 seconds off the pace. So that could put Jacobs up into the top 20 as the Ferrari comes towards the start-finish line. Goes P20 on that occasion, 1 minute 46.401 for the 333, as it looks like the 109 of Craig Holmes is in the pit lane, as looks like the Nissan has just exited the pits. And that will be the 73 of Patrizio Ungaro, rounding out the top 12. Mark Neutlings, 9 tenths off, but has been pipped to fourth position by the Porsche of Derek Bird. And Neutlings is currently a 10th up as he goes through into Repsol, just under the bridge. And allowing the Audi to not quite kiss the apex there, Cammy, but allows the car to carry the momentum through. And obviously with a mid-engined rear-wheel drive car, the balance should be pretty good on a track that requires handling characteristics here at Barcelona.
Yeah, there's a reason Formula One come here to test, as usually the case, but it's a very technical circuit with a little bit of everything, and I think it's going to suit mid-engine car. And we just hear it. Welby is 5 tenths up. Sorry, Alex.
Yeah, and goes P3 on a 1 minute 44.514. Good evening to everyone in the YouTube chat with Andy, Ruben, Jeremy, and High Alton Texas Racing. Good evening to you all. If you are enjoying the stream at the moment, don't forget to, if you are watching on the official stream, don't forget to smash that like button, hit the subscribe and hit the notification bell. Mark Neutlings coming out of the final corner, and he was a 10th up last time when we caught up with him. Goes P3 on a 1 minute 44.490, which means that the top 3 are covered by, well, make that the top 4, as Jürgen Valby in the Aston Martin rounds out the top 4. So it's 2 Ferraris, an Audi and an Aston Martin. Follow that up with the cars from Van Brabant and Derek Bird, but Jonathan Wood is half a second up, and that could put the Porsche probably into around about 6th place and drop Derek Bird onto row. Oh, he nearly gets there by about 36 thousandths of a second. So that's 3 Porsches, Weissach's finest, that round out the top 7 positions. And Mark Neutlings is gunning for provisional pole at this moment in time. 17 minutes and 20 seconds on the session to go. So if he's 4 tenths up, that will put him within a tenth. That will put him within 7 hundredths of Wolfslehner at the moment, who really hasn't been challenged thus far. But as the track is evolving, Cammy, the track's coming to the drivers, and there are some that are going to be able to capitalise and maybe just wait until that opportune time to maybe put in a fairly good outlap and then go full guns blazing into turn 1 and see how they fare.
As the session progresses, we'll rubber in, the grip will come to them. Also, drivers will be ducking into the pits to see if they can make tweaks and adjustments to their setup, as it looks like Neutlings sort of being held up. He's lost the time that he was going to put in there as well. It's a tragic shame. He had the slipstream if he could capitalise on it, but he's been held up there through the final chicane. Just checking the sector times, and even though Wolfslehner is top of the charts at the moment, he's only purple in the last sector. Neutlings has purple in sector 1, and you have to track all the way down to 9th place is Wood in the Porsche 911, who holds the purple time for sector 2 at the moment. So it looks like it's all to play for still.
Yeah, Mark Neutlings losing that half a second. That put him 12 tenths 12 hundredths, 12 thousandths off of his previous lap time. Chris Baker improves to 15th position, a 1 minute 45.669 for the Aston Martin. Kayola in the FD Racing Department 67 Aston Martin rounds out the top 7, who are covered by just 6.2 tenths as we fast approach the halfway point of this 30-minute qualifying session. It is a 45-minute race with no mandatory pit stops, so it will be a flat-out sprint. And Kayola, I'm hearing, is about 5 tenths out, but going through that chicane rather messily, unfortunately, through the first part of it. He's lost all that time, and all that hard work that the Italian has put in has literally been undone, and was just over 600ths of a 600ths of a second off of his best lap time. Eric Dont from Belgium in the 963 Ferrari is a couple of tenths up, so could put himself into maybe 13th or 14th, so that'll put the Ferrari provisionally on row number 7 of the grid. We've got 32 drivers coming to race here this evening, the opening round of the season, and Dont does exactly the same thing as Kayola did that time through the RACC chicane. But will the Ferrari manage to make that up? I'm not too sure, but we're about to find out as Dont crosses the line. No, lost that time and was nearly 2 tenths off of the best lap time. Peter de Jong in the is 3 tenths up and rocking the pink pig colours here tonight here at Barcelona, and is 3 tenths up. That could probably put the number 23 Porsche up to around about 21st position. Crosses the stripe, exactly that, and goes 3/100ths quicker than Zolfeyer. And Wolfslaner back out on the circuit, looking to maybe extend that gap. And I'm wondering, Cammy, if the Austrian actually has something in the bag. I'm hearing he's a 10th up already on his best lap time so far.
Maybe it'll be also interesting to see which of these drivers are hot lappers and which of them can do it consistently over the course of an entire race. So it's one thing to push on low fuel for a qualifying lap, but quite another to do it consistently lap after lap with 60 or 90 litres of fuel in the tank. As I saw a car quite off the track there, hoping they won't obstruct Holmes. No, they're keeping to the outside, as they should. Holmes is 2 up, despite being behind the red Aston. And we've just been informed he's lost the time, Alex.
Yeah, well, that was Andreas Pettersson from Sweden in the number 30 Mercedes. As Wolfslaner still is now, he's 2 tenths up. Now, just lost a tenth coming out of the RACC chicane, but does Peter Wolfslaner have an opportunity to improve? He's the first one to break the 1 minute 44 second barrier, but by 2/1000ths of a second. He lost a bit of time coming out of that final chicane, and if he nails it coming through on the next lap, I would probably say that Wolfslaner could probably push it towards the 1 minute 43.8, and that's not without the realms of possibility. We're back with Andrea Kayola in the 67 Aston Martin. So we've got 2 Astons in the top 7, with Jörgen Wahlby from Sweden rounding out the top 4, covered by just over half a second. So here is Kayola. We'll stay with the Italian for the moment. I think he's on an outlap at the moment, so we might see that the Aston 4-litre twin-turbo V8 that produces around 700 Newton meters of torque, 535 brake horsepower, with a maximum RPM of just over 7,400. As Kayola goes in tight to the apex of New Holland, allows the Aston Martin to run wide coming out of the corner and onto the curbing on the left. So, to be honest here, Cammy, it's good to see that the Astons are definitely representing in the top 10.
Which isn't a surprise. The car, it's very easy to handle. It's the top choice for newcomers, and depending on these drivers' experience, it may be the safest option for them. It definitely will do them well over the course of, say, the entire race, and it wouldn't surprise me to see them fighting for the podium position.
It looks like Kayola's got that car hooked up at the moment. Mark Neutelings is 2 tenths up at the moment. So if he can gain a little bit of time, maybe another tenth, this will put him on the provisional front row as we are 40 seconds away from the third part. Well, the last third of this 30-minute qualifying session. Through the RACC chicane comes the 666 Audi. So let's see if Mark Neutlings gets any closer. He's a tenth up at the moment. Puts down the hammer, and this time improves and goes to within just under 2 tenths off of Lars Eklund. Derek Bird goes in and puts his fastest lap in qualifying, jumps up from what was 8th up into 4th with a brilliant lap time, a 1 minute 44.490, and that drops Carlo van Brabant down into 6th position, with Jorgen Valby now rounding out the top 5. Here's Giovanni Nifosi in the number 63 Porsche, now coming through Europe car and through into the RACC chicane. You've just got to make it neat and tidy through the first part of it, and that sets you up nicely for the second half before you exit out of the chicane and go through New Holland. Let's see if the Italian does make a improvement. Well, actually, that's the best lap for that Italian so far, a 1 minute 45.717. So there's Lee Ellis, one of the many Bentley drivers out there. There's about 3 of them on the grid, and he's currently running in 28th. Best effort from the Americans so far, a 1 minute 47.772, but could look to improve. But it's still rather competitive at the top 10, Cami, because you've got Alessandro Diamante in the 488 Ferrari rounding out the top 10, covered by just over 1.1 seconds.
Yeah, I'm just having a look through the timings actually, and there's still 4 cars out there, 4 drivers who have yet to put in a hot lap. So I'm just wondering if their strategy is they feel maybe a bit inexperienced and they'd be safer starting from the back. We've got Benkaya, Ambro, Arobas, and Stathis. Mix of cars, 2 Ferraris, a Porsche, and a McLaren. They've not put 1 flying lap in yet, so curious, but we'll see how that pans out for them in the race.
Yes, indeed, but Carlo van Brabant jumps up into 5th position in the number 4 Porsche. Here's Chris Baker in the number 10 Aston Martin, and he's currently 1.671 seconds off of the best lap so far in this session, courtesy of Austria's Peter Wolfslehner in the 196 Ferrari. Lars Eklund rounds out the top 2, so it is still a front row lockout for Ferrari as a manufacturer. Chris Baker looking to improve and maybe get himself maybe a little bit closer towards the top 10 as up the slight incline, and he's currently 2 tenths up, which will put him probably ahead of Holmes, who's just ahead in the 109 Bentley. So it's going to be rather interesting to see whether Craig Holmes gets deposed and a position to round out the top 15 by Chris Baker. And he's looking a little bit dicey on whether he's lost a little bit of time. But he's got a 10th in his pocket. And is he going to improve on that particular occasion? No, he loses all that time. I think he lost about 3 tenths of a second as a result of it. Here's Jonathan Wood in the number 71 Porsche. And he's a couple of tenths up. And you've got Patrizio Ongaro in the Nissan ahead by about 4 tenths. So if Jonathan Wood can actually make up another couple of tenths in the last part of this lap, this could do the Porsche no harm whatsoever as we head into the last 6.5 minutes of qualifying. Wood now negotiates the chicane. Nice and neatly done by the Porsche, I must say. Not taking any of that sausage curve coming out of the chicane through the final corner. So does the Porsche have the legs to get up a further position? He does, and that's a 1 minute 44.547. So a great lap there from Jonathan Wood that puts him into 8th place. And Cammy, what's more, he did it by 16 thousandths of a second. He must have been hearing me.
Tiniest the margins, and the Porsche 911 in ACC is not the easiest car to drive. It's got a bit of a heavy bottom, bit of a pendulum that can swing out very easily, especially around the technical and tight corners of the Circuit de Catalunya. So it's surprising to see 3 of them in the top 10 at the moment.
Yep, so Ongaro is currently a 10th up in the Nissan, so could retake 8th position just a minute or so after Jonathan Wood crossed the stripe. It is going to be down to the wire between the Porsche and the Nissan as let's just see, he goes P4. That's an incredible lap, a 1 minute 44.385, and I know for a fact that his friends at SFR Italia are cheering him on. So that is a great lap. That is a brilliant lap. P5, because he's set exactly the same lap time as Mark Neutling's, and it's changing all the time. Andrea Caiola has gone P3 in the Aston Martin on a 1:44.343. Andrew Ambro now coming out of the final corner and will cross the line and puts in a 1 minute 47.070. But it was an invalidated lap, so a real shame for them. Shame for him. Alessandro Diamante in the number 488. Funnily enough, that's the model moniker for this particular vehicle. Going up the ascent here through towards the far part of the circuit. So can Diamante make a run or a little bit higher in the top 10? We'll just see whether the Ferrari has the gumption to do so, but looks rather steady there.
He's got Wolfstein under him, so Wolfstein is not going to be holding him up, and it will give him a little bit of a tow down the final straight as well, I imagine.
Yep, that could very much be the case, especially when you're not too far. If you're a little bit further behind the car in front, you're not going to be completely compromised by the dirty air that the car in front is actually pushing, and Wolfschleiner looking to possibly assert his dominance on qualifying, which has happened. So Wolfschleiner crosses the line. Let's see if Diamante improves. Best lap time from Diamante, but Caiola has just got even quicker. The Aston Martin is hunting down the Ferrari, has broken down the Maranello stranglehold on the front row. So Andrea Caiola from FD Racing has just gone second quickest, and Cammy, what's even more impressive, he's gone to just over a 10th and a half behind Wolfschleiner.
Yeah, is he so still Wolfschleiner is the only one under 144 though, isn't he? Nobody else has been able to crack that. He's only done it by 0.02 of a second, Wolfschleiner. But what's important for Caiola now is that he's got reasonably open track ahead of him for the start of the race, as the scariest thing in GT racing is being part of that midfield pack going into corner 1. So that will take a lot off his mind going into that first corner. He won't have to worry so much about what's going on behind him or the dreaded 3-4 car wide sort of starts at turn 1.
Yeah, it's a 660 metre drag down to turn 1 from the start. But there's Wolfschleiner still leading and is currently 0.2 up. Now, I did say earlier on in qualifying that Wolfschleiner was threatening to put in a 1:43.8. We could see even quicker than that. So through comes the 196 Ferrari out of the final chicane and through New Holland. What's the lap time going to be from Peter Wolfschleiner?
Getting a turn as well.
And look, 1:43.677. The gap between Wolfschleiner and Andrea Caiola now extends to just over 4.5 tenths of a second. And you know what's even more astounding is that Wolfschleiner has another lap in the bag. So could Wolfschleiner be even looking to up the ante even further in qualifying, Cammy? That's the big $64,000 question we've got right now.
He's seen Caiola put in that time, and sort of like a lion coming in, sort of threatening dominance of the alpha lion, he said, no, this is my race, this is my qualifying session, and this is what I can really do, so you're going to have to up your game, son.
So just heard that Caiola is up by another couple of tenths, so could actually close the gap down on to Wolfschleiner. So Kaiola could be the second driver to go into the 1 minute 43s, but that depends on how much closer to Wolfschleiner Kaiola actually gets. And Kaiola will have another opportunity if he makes it to the finish line in time before the timer strikes 0. We've got 30 seconds on the clock in this session, and it looks like quite a few of the drivers have decided to call it a day and get themselves steeled and ready for the 45-minute race here at the Circuit de Catalunya, Barcelona. So Kaiola, a couple of tenths up. Let's see as the Italian goes down through into the chicane. Will it be neat and tidy from the Aston Martin? Looks to be the case. 3 tenths up, and now the clock strikes 0. So this is the last chance. Kaiola's going to cross the line. How close will it be to Wolfschleiner? It goes to just over 2 tenths. And in the process, Andrea Kaiola is the second out of the 32 drivers. The only two, alongside Wolfschleiner, a 1 minute 43.899. Craig Holmes still out. Looks like Jacobs is still out there as well. That's Jack Jacobs down in 20 seconds. So Holmes is currently a tenth up, and if he gets another tenth or two, this could put the Bentley maybe into as high as row number 6, with the top 12 maybe beckoning for Craig Holmes. But as they say, Cammy, never say never.
Never say never indeed. And it looks like Craig Holmes, is he going to be impeded by the red and yellow Ferrari? I'm not sure who that is. Are they moving out the way? I'm not sure they are.
That's Dimitri Stathis, and Craig Holmes basically puts the overtake on Stathis there going through Europe Car. So this time around, let's see, does Craig Holmes do anything and manage to get up the order? As Mark Neutlings is going to be on P4, and Craig Holmes stays in 14th position. But your pole sitter for the first race of the new eSENIORS GT3 World Championship here at the Circuit de Catalunya, Barcelona, it is Austria's Peter Wolfschleiner. And then you've got Andrea Kaiola in second. So it is Ferrari versus Aston Martin. Lars Eklund, last season's champion, will start on the inside of row number 2, and we'll have Mark Neutlings. But to be honest with you, Cammy, standout performance from Wolfschleiner. But the good thing was we saw great track evolution over the course of the 30-minute session.
Yeah, and it was so exciting just seeing Wolfschleiner and Kaiola sort of back and forth, sort of throwing down the gauntlet to each other. Just saying, I can do this. Well, this is what I can do. Well, this is what I can do. As the time ticked down and the rubber just sort of increased on the track, making it faster and faster. A little bit disappointed. Eklund didn't get in on the action as well, but I think he was just happy to sit in the pits for the last few minutes and just watch what happened. He wanted to be a spectator among us.
Yeah, exactly. And as they say, times for show, points to go. There you can see the grid fully assembled ahead of the 45-minute sprint race. Track temperature has dropped by about 7 degrees Celsius. And as you can see, the sun looks to be setting because the server time is now at 6:02 p.m. here at the Circuit de Catalunya, Barcelona. The circuit itself, 2.905 miles. That's 4.675 kilometers, 16 turns, and it was built in 1991 and actually hosted the Spanish Grand Prix that same year. So this year it's actually celebrating its 30th anniversary of running as a FIA Grade 1 listed circuit. So let's run you through the grid before we get the formation lap underway here at Barcelona. So Peter Wolfschleiner will start on pole position in the 196 Ferrari. Andrea Kaiola in the 67 Aston Martin will be alongside on the front row. Then it's Lars Eklund from Sweden in the 696 Ferrari, and Mark Neutlings in the 666 Audi. Patrizio Ongaro in the Nissan number 73 will be on the inside of row 3, and we'll have Carlo van Brabant in the number 4 Porsche alongside. Row 4 it is Derek Bird in the 701 Porsche, and Jürgen Volby from Sweden in the number 2 Aston Martin. Jonathan Wood in the number 71 Porsche will have Alessandro Diamante in the 488 Ferrari, and they round out the top 10. So it is KB Smith from the US in the 555 Ferrari, and Alistair Hughes in the number 16 Bentley, row 6. Row 7, it's David Noble in the 17 Mercedes and Craig Holmes in the 109 Bentley. Chris Baker in the number 10 Aston Martin, and Eric Dont in the 963 Ferrari. That's row 8. Row 9, it's Tony Whitten in the number 56 Ferrari, and Giovanni Niforsi in the 63 Porsche. Then it's Mark Pocock, Peter de Jong rounding out the top 20, Zoltveyer, Jack Jacobs, Rickard Westin, Terry Trowbridge, Steve Justice, Andreas Pettersson, Dimitri Stathis, Lee Ellis. Then we've got Michael Benshire, Andrew Ambro, and Jeremy Arrobas. 45 minutes on the clock here in Spain. No mandatory pit stop. So for the first race of the new eSENIORS GT3 World Championship, we are green, we are off and away, and a great start already by Wolfsteiner, but Mark Neutelings has already made his way past Lars Eklund and is looking to make it 3 abreast going into turn 1 for the first time. This could be rather gnarly, but luckily enough, the slightest amount of contact between Kaiola and Neutelings has allowed Wolfsteiner to get away into the distance. As Kaiola has gone wide, and that is coming through turn 3 at Renault, and you can see a little bit further behind a couple of the Porsches battling away. Looks like you've got Bird, you've also got Patrizio Ongaro going up the inside of Kaiola, as now we make our way through down the dip, down the descent here at Barcelona. But Wolfsteiner gets a pretty good advantage. Lars Eklund now down into what is effectively going to be 4th position. He's got Jürgen Volby breathing down his rear exhaust pipes, but Cami, Peter Wolfsteiner has got a good run, as I've just seen Ongaro's gone off the track.
Yeah, this is exactly what Wolfsteiner needed. He just needed everybody to bicker and fight behind him. Mark Neutelings made an awesome start. He got in between the front, T2 at the front, Wolfsteiner and Kaiola, and just made himself a big problem for Kaiola, who went very wide at the long right-hander and is down into 5th position, and he's just trying to pick his way back now. He's just gone, I think he's just made it back past Bird, and now he's trying to get past Buckland and just in front of him as they come round to the final chicane. Van Brabant as well, another big winner at the start, but Wolfsteiner is already pulling out a 2.3 second lead, and every lap that China is ahead, we're just hearing that there's been a disconnect, Alex.
Yeah, unfortunately, Mark Neutelings, after that rocket ship start, unfortunately has had a disconnect, which effectively means that he is DNF'd after what was a pretty good performance. So you can now see the battle on your screens. Jürgen Volby has got past Lars Eklund. Lars Eklund, last season's champion, battling away with Gaydon's finest in the form of the Aston Martin V8 Vantage GT3. Kaiola has recovered to stay in 5th position, so 2 Aston Martins in the top 5. Wolfsteiner has now got a 3.6 second gap over Carlo van Brabant. Jürgen Volby, Lars Eklund, Andrea Kaiola rounding out the top 5 positions. Derek Bird in 6th ahead of Wood, Diamante, Holmes, Hughes, Dont, Noble, Baker, Pocock and Whitten. That is your top 15, but Wolfsteiner has effectively done the Sebastian Vettel of GT3 starts. He's well up the road. He's probably gone into another local district here in Catalonia, and the Austrian has got an absolutely enormous gap, and now it's down to those behind to stop battling between themselves, because we're only less than 5 minutes into this race, as Lars Eklund has a bit of a moment there, and that opens the door for Kaiola to get through. So Lars Eklund on the back foot already, having started on the inside of row 2 on 3rd position alongside Mark Neutelings. So you can see now, this is how tricky it can be, but also the biggest thing is, Cami, we're still effectively on relatively, I would say, medium warm tyres, whereas it was cold tyres going into New Holland before the start phase.
Yeah, And in this series, they don't complete a full lap on the warm-up lap. They just start a few corners back to begin the race. So that is also time that they've not been able to warm the tyres up. Wolfstein are now almost 4 seconds ahead, and this creates a very positive psychological effect of he can look in his rear view mirror and not see a car behind him. And that it's just a great boosting morale effect where you can feel a bit relaxed and you know for sure that you're pulling out a gap to everybody, and just having that sort of visual reminder that you're doing that just sort of really helps the confidence and takes the pressure off as you become aware that everybody's just fighting behind you. And what Walby, Kaiola, Eklund and Bird need to be doing now is, like a good cycling team, they need to be working together for the greater good, as it were, to close the gap up, because the more they fight, the more this just plays into Wolfsteiner's hands.
Yeah, effectively what you're saying is they need to become like a bit of a mini peloton and start chasing down Wolfsteiner, who's now got a 4.35 second advantage over Van Brabant, who did a really good job. He started in P6, and now we're on board with Jorgen Valby, who's actually closing down on the American. You can see picture in picture. Really good as always to the broadcast crew, Steve proudly in Simsport Solutions, helping us with these fantastic camera angles as we go through Europe car on board the Aston Martin, as Walby's chasing down Van Brabant, as Van Brabant makes a bit of a mistake coming out of the RACC chicane, and that means that Jorgen Valby will have the run coming out of New Holland and down the long straightaway. That Aston, with 700 Newton meters of torque, starts to pull to the right hand side of the number 4 Porsche and will have the job done, I guarantee you that much, going into turn 1. That was perfectly positioned by Walby there, Cammy. So the Swede now up into second place.
And it didn't look like they fought that too much. They realise it's a 40-minute race. We're only a couple minutes in. It's a sprint. It's a marathon, not a sprint. And they realise they're not going to be held up by Walby. So the best thing to do is just to sit tight behind and, again, just make up that time, because you don't need to be fighting each other in these opening laps. You're just going to put additional strain on the tyres, on the brakes, and as I've said a few times, you're just letting Wolfsteiner get away. I think there's no need at the moment for risky overtakes unless you're inherently positive that the car ahead of you is costing you half a second a lap. As we see Eric Dont there in the Ferrari just try to go around the outside of the AMG, not quite making it stick, and tucks back in behind to the AMG getting his line all wrong, and Eric will take advantage.
Oh, there's been a tangle. Yeah, that's Baker and Noble that have just come together there. So that was David Noble in the Mercedes. Good evening to quite a few other people that have joined us. Good to see Amy Roberts, Andy Lees, Malcolm Hutchian and Reese Wiggin joining us in the chat. Thank you very much for joining us on this opening round of the season. But Jorgen Valby has started to pull a gap over Carlo Van Brabant in the number 4. So the Swede dropping the American, with Kaiola not too far behind in the Porsche. But a good gap now. Walby's got at least a 7/10 of a second advantage over Van Brabant, and actually put in a quicker lap time than Wolfsteiner. So the gap will start to come down. But in terms of what is happening with regards to it, let's have a look at the replay. Yeah, there was the slightest touch on the back rear of David Noble's car, and that was from Chris Baker in the Aston Martin. So a real shame for Noble, who, as you said, he'd gotten his line a bit wrong. But I think Baker was just coming in a bit too hot, and then all of a sudden, 3 into 1 don't go. But Jorgen Valby now starting to stretch away, and it looks like, as you were saying, the Aston Martin can be a very, very friendly car around a circuit like this. And this is playing into the hands of the likes of Valby and also Kaiola, who's now chasing down Van Brabant for third place.
Yeah, I think if Van Brabant doesn't get his line right out of the final chicane, then Kaiola's going to strike, because he's got a fast, comfortable car underneath him. And as my colleagues and co-racers have told me in the past, the Porsche can be a bit of a handful, especially if the track is wet or if it's cold, or even it's just got a heavy rear end to it. But Van Brabant doing a great job at the moment, keeping it in third position. I think he's one of the top winners from the first lap there, making up places, wasn't he? Wolfschleiner got away, and Neudling unexpectedly left us.
Like ships passing in the night, Mark Neutlings, I must say, on that particular occasion. It's a real shame because we know how quick Mark Neutlings can be, but unfortunately he showed it in qualifying, but we haven't had a chance to see that in the race. A real shame. So hopefully we'll see Mark back for round 2 very, very soon, as Kayola closing on Van Brabant, looks to set it up the inside, does exactly the same that Warby did. But on this particular occasion, Van Brabant trying to keep the Porsche pin to the outside, which gives him the run. But here, that brings in Lars Eklund, who's now trying to go up the inside of the American. Oh, they bump door panels, and Van Brabant sent exit stage left, but then rejoins. That was very, very close indeed. But Kayola timed that to perfection. And I think Lars Eklund spotted a window of opportunity, but I think it was just a case that, no harm, no foul. But that was a bit of a robust move from Eklund, I must admit.
It was. He saw a gap. He was very entitled to go for it. I just don't think he expected the Porsche to turn in on him and try to return to the racing line. He said, no, I'm here. I'm going to have it. And they say rubbing is racing, but that was more of a bit of road rage, a bit of argy-bargy, as it were.
The razor blades on the elbows were well and truly out there, as Ongaro looking to go up the inside of Verher there in the... You know what's really funny? When we see these leagues and you see the team names, Testarossa in the number 70 Ferrari, there's Verher. I've seen Desperate Measures as a team name, as Ongaro looking to try and get past Ongaro in the number 73 Nissan, who started P5 after what happened in the initial couple of laps. Meant that the Italian on the back foot, but will look to move forward, and there goes the Nissan up the inside of the Ferrari. And then we've got Jack Jacobs in the 333, and then you've got Dimitri Stathis not too far behind either. So the good thing is that there is some rather interesting battles, and one of the things I love about sim racing, Cammy, is the fact that you can have battles all the way up and down the order.
There's always action, especially in GT racing. I think that's one of the main differences between Formula 1 and GT racing, is whereas Formula 1, you have the people who just get away from you at the start and it's very difficult to overtake with all the aero. GT racing, and in particular GT3 sim racing, you have battles everywhere, as you have drivers of all abilities. You've got your aliens out front, such as Wolfschleiner, as it appears. He's just an alien. And then throughout the field. And what's always great is in sim racing, you sometimes come across the odd celebrity. So it gives you a chance to race against people that you never would have ordinarily been able to. It is the great leveler in terms of skills and finances.
Yeah, Craig Holmes we're now with. Started down in 14th position, now P9. And has the looks to be there's a couple of drivers just behind, so that looks to be possibly Don, I think, maybe in the Ferrari just behind in the 963, but there's also another Bentley just behind as well. There are cars out of position, obviously through what we saw on the first couple of laps. The track temperature is now starting to drop. So the server has gone up, we've gone through half an hour of the server, so there is a multiplier on this server, so 6:32 local time, sun starting to set, and the track temperature here has dropped from 29 degrees Celsius to 27 degrees Celsius, and this is another factor that we have to look into here, Cammy, because once the temperatures start dropping, the pressures will start dropping on the tyres, and that might make things a little bit trickier, especially if the tyres are very heavily degraded towards the end of the race.
Yeah, it will all come down to their individual car setups and whether they've set them up for comfort or whether they've set them up for high speed, being pointy in the corners, being slightly understeery or oversteery, and just the driver's own preferences. I think it will play into the hands of the Aston Martins, with Kayola quickly dropping Eklund. He's sort of built up almost a 2-second lead over him, and he's making good gains on Walby in front of him, and then he'll be able to finally set after Wolfschleiner, who he started alongside.
Yep, so Volby has just gone well, he was slightly quick. He was slightly quicker than Walshlaner at one point, but Kaiola on the previous lap, on the completion of lap number 7, we're on lap number 8 at the moment, with 1 minute 44.754, and that was well over half a second quicker than Volby. That was nearly half a second quicker than Volby. Ricard Vestin in the number 9 Porsche. So Vestin actually started all the way down in 24th position and has kept his head cool, whilst others have lost theirs, as one of the Ferraris just up ahead makes a little bit of a mistake. That's going up the hill. So that will probably more than likely be the number 13 of Pocock, that has just made a slight mistake there, but managed to keep the Ferrari back into ship-shaven Bristol fashion, so to speak. But it looks like Witten from South Africa in the number 56, just up ahead of Vestin, has got a little bit of front bumper damage. There's quite a bit of that paintwork scuffed, and then we've got David Noble, who is recovering from that earlier incident involving himself and Chris Baker to try and close in. So Eklund at the moment is he's actually hemorrhaging time. I just noticed, Cammy, that Eklund's just put in a 1:47.5, and just look at the gap between him and the 701 Porsche of Derek Bird. Bird's nearly taken 2 seconds out of him. So I'm wondering if there is a problem, whether Eklund's running with damage on that car.
I'm just checking on my other window to see if Eklund has got damage. I can't. There's nothing too obviously visible. I don't know if he maybe just had a bad lap, or if his tyres are starting to go off slightly. If he's had it set up for a hot lap and not changed the setup too much, then it might just be sort of going past its best state, as it were. Because
I've just noticed on the sector times on the previous lap that Eklund actually lost well over about 1.3 seconds in both sectors 2 and 3, so the Ferrari might have a slight problem. But I've just seen that Volby's just set the fastest lap of the race, 1 minute 44.6, and has just put in another 1 minute 44, and has closed the gap to Wolfschleiner to just under 5 seconds. We've got 28 minutes and 50 seconds still to go. So I think Wolfschleiner could have an Aston Martin probably at his back bumper in probably maybe about 5 to 10 laps or so, with the pace that Wolby is currently setting.
yeah, I'm going to say, with Eklund losing time in his Ferrari, I was going to say he's not the only Ferrari to be losing time to the cars around him, as Wolby's now just 4.8 seconds behind Wolfschleiner. So yeah, I'm just going to say I was right all along. The Aston Martin is a comfortable, easy car to drive, and the Ferrari maybe just, as people are pushing now, are just maybe getting a little bit squirrely under them.
Yeah, it could be hurting the rear tyres somewhat, as Andrea Kaiola has also gone sub 1 minute 45. He's just under a tenth off of Jorgen Volby, and that's second and third respectively. So top 3 on lap, we're on double figures now, we're on lap 10. Top 3 covered by just under 8 seconds, as this battle here between Westin, Olgaro, Noble and Witten really has sort of imploded, so to speak, and that's the battle for 14th position. And you can see here again the track temperature has dropped by another degree, 26 degrees track temperature, 25 degrees ambient, but still optimum. It's still going to be clear skies up ahead here in Catalunya, and you can just see that this quartet, they're not putting all their cards on the table quite yet, are they?
No, I'm just looking at the Astons and wondering if they're running slightly higher tyre pressures as well, because as the temperature of the track comes down, if there are cars that have set their pressures on the tyres up quite conservatively, they may be falling down the sort of beneath the ideal temperature now, and just falling out of that perfect operating window in terms of their temperature. So that could be, although I say that, Wolfschleiner's just pulled out more than half a second to Wolby, so hush my mouth.
That's nearly 7/10 of a second that Wolfschleiner has just pulled out on Volby. But also just seen that Eklund started to respond as well. So that Ferrari's just on a 1:45.1 on the completion of lap 10. As these drivers here still battling away over 14th, 15th. Looks like Ricard Vestin Contact between Witten and Noble there. That's not what you wanted, and Ongaro is going to try and go up the inside of the Mercedes. And this is going through Renault. Looks to have got the job done, and we'll have the inside line going into Repsol very, very shortly. So it's not been an easy race for Patrizio Ongaro, but it looks like he's got the upper hand on Noble and has got the move done, and now he's trying to slingshot up the inside through on Witten, but the Ferrari counter-attacks and nearly pushes the Nismo off the track in that respect. So I think Ongaro got a bit of a wake-up call courtesy of Witten in the Ferrari, but on that particular occasion round the outside goes the Nissan on the Ferrari, and Ongaro gets the job done.
It was very unusual, wasn't it? It looked like Witten in the Ferrari at sort of turn 2 just sort of came to a dead stop on the apex. So the car behind had no chance but just to slam into the back of him. It's very unusual, and Ongaro was just able to take advantage of all of it and just say, well, I'll have that, thank you. And as much as Witten tried the old switcheroo, he may just have a damaged car now. He's ruined the front splitter and could be losing downforce at the front, and that's just going to cost him. There's a lot of this race left to go without some front downforce, so that may cost him dearly.
Yes, indeed. Well, I know that, Cammy, you're going to have to depart very, very shortly as we hit 25 minutes on the clock to go. But a real pleasure to have you alongside me in the virtual commentary box. So thank you very much for your welcome insight, and no doubt we'll speak very soon.
I don't know how much use I've been here, but I've enjoyed it. It's been a lot of fun. Thank you, Alex.
Brilliant. Thank you, Cammy. And without further ado, let's bring in a regular voice that works alongside me. Let's bring in Steve Proudley. Steve, good evening. What a race we've got so far on our hands here at Barcelona.
Yeah, I was really enjoying sitting back and just watching that and playing with the cameras and seeing how things progress. And boy, these boys, these chaps, these folks, these drivers, they mean business, don't they, this evening? They're not taking any prisoners. We're seeing a little bit of rubbing here and there in the corners, nothing too savage. It all seems pretty fair to me, but some great battles up and down the field and some exciting stuff.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. So we continue our battle. This is between Noble in the number 17 Mercedes and Witten in the number 56 Ferrari. But then we turn our attentions back to the front of the field. Lars Eklund from Sweden in the 696, battling away with Derek Bird in the number 701 Porsche as they come across the stripe. And that Porsche seems to have a good bit of a toe here, going down towards the first corner, but we've seen that the Aston Martin has made rather short work of that, Steve, but other cars seem to be struggling.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the tow is very, very effective here, but we know in this GT3 class, obviously the cars all have their different attributes, and some of them are quicker than others in a straight line. Some of them struggle a little bit, and even with the tow, they can only just hang on to the car in front. But it is a very effective slipstream, and when, like you say, when the right car is behind, he can soon transfer that into a position gained into the braking zone of turn 1. But yeah, that gap up at the front, as you and Cammy were quite rightly mentioning, it's sort of seesawing around a little bit, isn't it? They're all sort of within a few tenths of each other every lap, so the gap's not really sort of changing too much now. It's staying pretty stagnant, but we have got 22 minutes left, and Cammy was quite right in her observation. You know, this track is quite notorious for being hard on tyres, and you know, if they are running sort of what we call a hot lap setup, we could see a few guys starting to struggle for pace, as Eklund very much seems to be struggling for pace against that Porsche behind him of Bird, and Bird seems to be able to catch him through all the corners, and we might just see the Porsche try to make a move soon, although the Porsche is probably one of the cars that will struggle on this on the long start finish straight, Alex.
Yeah, very much the case. I've just seen that Wolf Schleiner has definitely improved his pace. He's actually running in the 145.3s. Eklund is running in the 146.1s. So that's about an 0.8 of a second differential as they cross the line. We're on now lap number 14 of this race, and still 21 minutes and 43 seconds still to go. So we don't know what is going to happen, but myself and Steve will definitely be looking forward with great interest as now it looks like the concertina effect has happened through the RACC chicane, as I see that Noble has got past Witten and is closing on Hughes up ahead in the Bentley. So it's going to be rather interesting how Noble can come back from this. I mean, obviously Ongaro qualified P5, and after that first lap incident has really been on the back foot ever since.
Yeah, absolutely. It's very easy, you know, like say, to you get a good qualification, and then as you guys pointed out at the start, the sort of anywhere further back than the first 2 or 3 rows on the grid isn't the best place to be in a GT3 race, because everybody just wants that same piece of tarmac, and ultimately there's only ever enough room for the one car, so you can soon get bumped around a little bit. But to be fair to these drivers, that start looked absolutely awesome. They all pretty much got through clean. A little bit of knocking here and there, but obviously it doesn't have to be a knock that puts you back. Sometimes you can be a little bit overcautious. You might have to get out of the throttle and on the brakes because of somebody else's actions, and yeah, it can put you back a little bit. But that Mercedes is certainly making ground on Hughes in front, and he's going to be challenging for that position, if not in the next few corners, certainly I think on the start-finish straight. Although that Bentley will be no slouch in a straight line, so it'll be interesting to see how the Merc gets on against it. And I have to say that Mercedes sounds absolutely awesome. Full chat down that start-finish straight. It's one of the best sounding cars, I think, in the sim.
You know what's really, really funny? The amount of people that try and correct me when I say this, and I know that some of those well-versed in Assetto Corsa Competizione will know, as will GT3 aficionados, the Mercedes AMG is a 4-litre twin-turbo V8. That's the road car. However, Falterbach decided in their right minds to stick in and keep stuck in the 6.2-litre naturally aspirated V8, which produces 550 brake horsepower at a maximum RPM of just over 8,000 and has 650 newton meters of torque. And that's not far off of the Bentley, considering the fact that the Bentley is actually 15 kilos heavier in terms of its overall weight, 1300 versus 1285. But Noble looks to be a lot quicker on this particular occasion, and last time out he was just a shade over 2/10 quicker than Hughes in the number 16 Bentley. So that battle, I think, and that's Alistair Hughes. We've still got 18 minutes and 3/4 still to go, and the top 3 covered by just over, or just under 10 seconds at the moment. And Mark Neuslings is with us in the chat. I was really looking forward, buddy, after that lightning start from 4th position to make it 3 abreast going into turn 1 off of the start. I mean, that was absolutely epic. But now we're with Andrea Caiola in the number 67, the Italian, trying to close down on Sweden's Jörgen Volby. That gap now is about 3.5 seconds, but Wolby is siphoning time. His gap between him and Peter Walschliner has now increased to 6.7 seconds. The interesting thing here, Steve, is that Walschliner is still putting in the low 1 minute 45s, Volby a 1 minute 46.1, and then Caiola a 1:45.4. So it looks like Caiola seems to have a better purchase underneath him at the moment.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, as we always say, I lose track of how many times we say it, but consistency is key. And there's a little bit of fluctuation through some of these lap times, although they're all staying within around about a second of each other. We all know on the racetrack a second's a massive amount of time. You know, we normally talk in tenths, 100ths, and even thousandths when it comes to it. But you know, consistency is key, and it's whoever can be, you know, the most consistent towards the end of the race. But these times they aren't coming down too much, and they are staying pretty stagnant at the moment.
Yeah, so we are fast approaching the last third of this race, and there is Derek Bird, who rounds out the top 6. He is closing once again on Lars Eklund, and the gap this time around is just under 6.5 tenths of a second. And between the pair of them, Bird was ever so slightly quicker, but by less than 4/100ths of a second as they come out of the RACC chicane through the right-hander. That's turn 16, New Holland, and Derek Bird puts the pedal to the metal in that 4-litre flat 6 Porsche, producing 542 brake horsepower and 525 Newton meters of torque. But Redline has the highest redline of any vehicle on this grid, 9,325 RPM, and got right up close and personal with the back bumper of Eklund. And now Derek Bird sizing up a move. This might be the only car out on this grid in terms of the manufacturers that has rear engine, rear wheel drive. But I think that Eklund knows that the inevitable is going to happen as Hughes closes on Pocock, as the Bentley looks to the left, then looks to the right of the Ferrari. Then you picture in picture the Porsche trying to gather pace and close in on the previous season champion of Eklund. But at the moment the Porsche not able to use that sheer drive, because obviously with the Porsche it might have a bit of a wide back end, so to speak, but it gets a good amount of traction coming out of the corners as long as you modulate the throttle to the right point and at the right point on the circuit. It seems like Eklund's just he's defending Steve like his life depended on it, let alone being out on the race circuit with just over 15 minutes to go.
Absolutely. Well, you know, I mean, you put everything on the line when you get behind the wheel of these cars, and basically your life is on the line. Everything does depend on it, because every position gained is another scalp taken, as it were, and nobody wants to give ground and nobody wants to give up positions. But again, the Bentley, you know, I thought he had the move done into turn one. I thought he was going to get up the inside, but we just saw a little snap of understeer, and now it's all about defending against Noble in the Mercedes behind. And not so much about attacking the Ferrari ahead for Hughes in the Bentley. But that's just how what it's like to be the filling in the sandwich, as we say, and he's got to have eyes front and eyes back, and he's going to really need to focus on his own line and try and hit those apexes and catch up to that Ferrari ahead of Pocock's. And he's got an opportunity now. He's given himself a little bit of breathing space as they come round the final corner. Manages to take a slightly tighter line than the Ferrari ahead, but he's going to get a slightly better run because of that. He'll have been able to get on the power that bit sooner, and as you can see, he is closing on the Ferrari ahead, but I don't think he's going to get close enough to make a lunge. In fact, he's not even going to bother. He's going to run out wide. He's concentrating on getting the perfect line into turn one, which he does with ease, but there's not a lot he can do with it at the moment. He just runs a little bit wide there, picks up a bit of dirt, and he loses those tenths that he gained on the run down into turn one.
Yeah, that's very much the case, and just keeping it. Oh, now you can just see that again. Bird has now lost time to Eklund on that particular occasion, so they have swapped back positions. I'm just having a look there. According to the live timing, there was a little bit of an incident involving the pair of them, so that would mean that if Bird's gone for a move and has gotten past Eklund in the incorrect manner, Bird has done the sportsmanlike thing and has now decided to give the place back, but Eklund runs wide, and that's not what you want to do when you're trying to defend for position. But then you look behind them, you've got Craig Holmes just behind in the Bentley, as that was a bit of a mistake there from Bird, and that's not what you want to do, going towards the top part of the circuit, on the far part of it, going through the Banque Sabadell and then through into Europe car. And then Alessandro Diamante is now going to make it a four-way scrap for what is sixth position. We have just over 12 3/4 minutes remaining on the clock, but Wolfschleiner still leading, and is leading by nearly 7.5 seconds ahead of Jorgen Valby and Andrea Caiola, rounding out the top three. Carlo van Brabant rounds out the top four and is the leading Porsche in this grid, with Jonathan Wood completing the top five.
Yeah, absolutely. And I was just, while you were doing such a good job of telling the story of that battle, we've got Hughes here in the Bentley. He's made a few mistakes in the last couple of corners, and he's put himself under pressure now from Noble in the Mercedes, and Noble gets that job done pretty much as if the Bentley wasn't there, and that was a matter of time. Unfortunately, Hughes, as he came through the final chicane, totally missed the apexes, ran a little bit wide on the exit onto the start-finish straight, couldn't get on the power as he did on the previous lap. Mercedes hit it all perfectly and got the job done, and that's a position I don't think that Bentley's going to get back now, because I think the Mercedes has got the legs on him. But yeah, great driving, great moving. It wasn't quite sure which battle to look at, Alex. It's all going on this evening.
Yeah, very much the case. I think Craig Holmes is really factoring in right now. as we get to the last 11.5 minutes, and so is Alessandro Diamante. And actually, not too far in the background, that is Eric Dont from Belgium. That is not too far adrift. So this could fast approach to be a 5-way scrap. So a quintet of cars battling over 6th position. And you can just see how quickly things can turn on their head. And it just seems, Steve, but by the live timing, that Eklund and Bird, well, they both were on a 2-minute 4 lap, which explains the incident which actually happened in Sector 1. And you can see that Derek Bird had a little bit of a twitch at the front end of that Porsche. So I'm wondering if he's having to work with a little bit of a damaged animal, pardon the terminology there, but a damaged car in terms of maybe the front suspension, because he's not catching up to Eklund, and Eklund is now powering away into the distance, and the gap between them is now over 1.1 seconds and climbing.
Yeah, absolutely, and I think it's more a case of Holmes behind him is going to start closing the gap down. And you know, as we've said already, Barcelona can be quite a savage track regarding tyre wear, and some of the cars will look after their tyres better than others, some of the drivers will look after the tyres better than others, and it depends a lot on the setup on the car as well, how aggressive it is. And it might be that we've just seen, you know, we've seen a Bentley understeer, we've seen the Porsche struggling a little bit. It might be that some of them have, you know, the tyres have seen better days, shall we say, and they're just starting to struggle as hard as they're trying to push. The track temperature is still a reasonable 24 degrees, not bad, not ideal, but not bad. There's not a lot of wind to affect things, so I would say it's probably down to tyre wear and maybe driver fatigue, because you know, concentration levels are always high, and you know, mistakes tend to creep in towards the end of the race. But one thing we haven't seen this evening, which is good to see, we haven't seen any drive-throughs for track limits yet, so everybody's managing to keep it respectively in the white lines and within the limits of the track, so good driving from everyone.
Yeah, there might be some drivers, I'll be completely honest here, Steve, that they might be on their second track cut, and as we know with the Assetto Corsa Competizione platform, the minute you have your third one, the next one is always going to be the fourth. You know, it's like 3 strikes, then you're out. As Noble closing on Mark Pocock, so this is the battle now for what is going to be 13th position, and you've got Alistair Hughes and the Bentley not too far behind either. So that Mercedes is making up places. Now I'm just going to have a look at where Noble actually started. He started in 13th on the grid. So this could be an opportunity for a little bit of redemption. You know, start where you qualified, despite the trials and tribulations after that incident between him and Baker on the very first, you know, within the first few laps. But Noble's really done a good job of just getting his head down, you know, put the blinkers on and just go for it.
Yeah, absolutely, and it seems that it's the intimidation method, because we've seen him pick up the places through other drivers' mistakes. Predominantly, he gets a kick of oversteer there and does really well to catch that and manage to keep the forward momentum going, so he's not really cost himself too much time. But yeah, he's got the pace, he seems to be able to catch these guys, and he just keeps showing his nose. If you keep watching him, every time they're going towards a braking zone, even when he's got no chance whatsoever, without a full send, he shows those headlights. He lets the guys in front of him know that he's there. He's just driving a tighter line there than the Ferrari ahead. He's putting the pressure on and he's forcing the mistakes out of these guys. But what he wants to do now is get past this. He wants to get past Pocock in the Ferrari as fast as he can, because using the Bentley, although he's quicker than the Bentley is catching back up again, and he's going to be on his tail very quickly. And the last thing he wants to be doing, Noble doesn't want to be defending against the Bentleys. He's lucky then he's actually going to send it up the inside this time. He's heavy onto the brakes, and I think that was a mistake from Pocock, and Hughes just went to go for the inside, and a little bit of contact. I think that was pretty much. Oh, and we just see a bit more contact there, and I'll reserve judgment on that one.
That was Witten trying to get past Hughes, and 2 into 1 do not go. Now, obviously, the form shown by now. Looking back at season 1, I'm looking at currently the actual website itself, that Peter Walschleiner only made 2 appearances last season at Kyalami and the Nürburgring. You know, Jordan Valby was 8th, equal 8th with Jonathan Wood last season. Andrea Caiola, 3rd in last year's championship. David Noble was 2nd. Now, the thing is that Noble switched from Maranello to Affalterbach this time around, but Walschleiner has literally commanded proceedings. took pole position by 0.222 of a second. We're going to go to a replay here. Now this is what we saw a little bit earlier. So Noble up the inside, and you're now going to see that Pocock will turn in after coming out wide and collects Hughes. Then all of a sudden Witten decides, right, I'm going to go through here, and gets the run up to the next left-hander, and they come together. To be honest with you, I think it might have been, just looking at it from my perspective, Witten had the pace to get that job done, but I think Hughes may have been a little bit more prudent and maybe just lifted off the throttle before going through into that chicane, and that's where I think the incident happened.
Yeah, it was a difficult one. I mean, I'd like to watch that back a few more times, but I'm not going to bore the viewers with that one. We'll let the stewards look at that one and make a decision.
Exactly.
But yeah, I think to be fair, the car was there on his outside, and he just tried to get too aggressive with the defence and got too hard on the power. And I think the Ferrari was that turned in on him in that second part of that incident. Yeah, like I say, the stewards will make a decision on that. I think it wouldn't be fair for me to pass too much judgment.
Yeah, I'm just looking at it from a neutral perspective. I'm not a racer, but I can see it from a multitude of different angles, having done a lot of experience with regards to karting, and you can see positions decided like that rather easily. So yeah, as Steve said, we'll let the judgment pass to the stewards on that particular occasion, but Eric Don doing a really good job, now running in what looks to be 9th position, as Carlo van Brabant from the US, who started in 6th, got up to 2nd position after Wolfschleiner left everyone in the wake of his dust from those rear tyres on that Ferrari. So the American down in 10th position, but good for Eric Dont, who is currently in 9th. The 963 started in 16th position as Tony Witten and Rickard Westin. Thank goodness they're not completely side to side, but the Ferrari gets past the Porsche. Hughes is there, Ambro is there, and he started down in 31st position. So Andrew Ambro's had a really clean race thus far, as Alistair Hughes up the inside of Rickard Westin. The Welshman tries to go up the inside of the Swede, not on that particular occasion, but will he get the run on the Porsche coming out of into the next corner? No dice there, unfortunately, but into the braking zone the Porsche keeps ahead, and Andrew Ambro is just waiting. He's like a little Yorkshire Terrier nibbling at their heels, like saying, get out of my way, come on.
An honorary Yorkshire Terrier, yeah. He's, but yeah, the Porsche there of Westin goes exit stage right and stage left. I'm not sure what happened there, whether there was any contact or whether that was just too aggressive on the loud pedal and lost the back end snap of oversteer and everything was out of his control. But that has certainly taken the battle away from Hughes. But Hughes has got behind him. Is that Ambro still behind him, Alex?
Yeah, that is Ambro, because Witten's run away into the distance, I think. We'll just keep an eye out. So yeah, I think that looks to be Ambro, because Witten is a little bit further up the road. I'm just going to have a look on the live timing as we speak, because it's tough keeping up with these drivers at some point. It is Andrew Ambro behind him. So Tony Witten is up the road by nearly 2 seconds. And right behind them is Jack Jacobs, I believe, in the 333 Rnd Racing Ferrari. So Ambro, one of a couple of South Africans on this grid, trying to make his way, but he's done a really good job. 14 positions gained. That's not at all shabby, considering where he started, as we have just over 2.5 minutes still to go in this race. And the current leader is Wolfschleiner, going through into Renault for what could possibly be the 3rd to last lap.
Yeah, I think the leader's he's on his penultimate lap, I think. So these guys have got this lap and maybe 2 more to do. So there's still a little bit of time left for battling. 2 minutes 10 seconds on the clock. As we just see another Ferrari just missing his braking point there. He's not hit anything apart from a lot of sand, and he's making his way back onto the track, and I don't think it took anyone out. A lot of debris on the track there from the marker boards. They're always infamous on that corner there, because everybody runs out wide at some point, and the marker boards are not in the best of positions, and just seeing a lot of debris around there. But this battle's still going on, and Ambro in the Andrew Ambro, easy for you to say, in the Ferrari, making some great inroads in this race. And this is one of those races where there is a little bit of attrition with a few drivers making mistakes, and you can gain so many positions just by keeping your nose clean, and that magic word, consistent, that's the one. You know, that's what gets you the positions, that's what gets you the race finishes and the good results.
I think there's another word I can add to that as well. Patience. That's what you've got to have. You've got to have a bit of patience as well. But that's easier said than done when the red mist descends.
Yeah,
but,
red mist and patience are not a mix. They very rarely come together.
Yeah, you try and mention the word patience to a racing driver, they'll say, what? Sorry. And then move on. But on to the 26th and final lap of the race goes Peter Walschleiner in the 196 Ferrari. 10.6 seconds, I think that's 10.7 seconds ahead of Jorgen Valby, as Eric Dont looking to go up the inside of Alessandro Diamante, and there's Patrizio Ongaro just behind, and Dont manages to make a little bit of a mistake, and that allows Ongaro to close in on him, but Diamante keeps the 488 Ferrari ahead for the minute.
Yeah, he just put the car there, the Ferrari, just put it where he didn't really want to be, just to the outside of the turn, and he couldn't get it turned in. At one point I thought he was going to turn in on the Ferrari ahead of him, but he managed to keep it clean and just held it out wide, and he's not lost the position, and he's still there putting pressure on. Just seeing the leader though, I mean he's had a phenomenal race, hasn't he? He's not been challenged. You know, there's lots of ifs and buts. Poor old Mark Neutlins with his disconnect, he may have been able to take the battle to him, but I don't know, he didn't beat him in qualification, did he? It's it's one of those. It's we will never know. We have to join these guys for round 2 and see what happens in round 2. But at the moment, Walschleiner is going to come round and he's going to take the checkered flag, barring any catastrophes in these last few corners, and it's all looking good for a race win of round 1 at Barcelona here tonight.
Yeah, so Peter Walschleiner made 2 appearances in the inaugural season here on the eSENIORS GT3 World Championship, but out of the final corner, the 16th and final turn, it has been lights out to checkered flag as Peter Walschleiner takes the victory after 26 laps of racing. Jorgen Valby from Sweden takes second position in the Aston Martin, and it's 2 Astons in the top 3, courtesy of Andrea Caiola from Italy. So 3 different nationalities in the top 3 make that 4 in the top 4, courtesy of Jonathan Wood in the number 71 Porsche, who started down in 9th position and will best last season's inaugural champion of Lars Eklund from Sweden, who will round out the top 5. Derek Bird completes the top 6, and a great run for Belgium's Eric Dont in the 963. Started in 16th position, makes 9 places up after 45 minutes, and will take the checkered flag ahead of Alessandro Diamante. Patrizio Ongaro makes it another Italian in the top 10, and the USA's Carlo van Brabant in the Porsche rounds out the top 10. Craig Holmes brings the Bentley home in 11th, ahead of Chris Baker in the Aston Martin in 12th place. So very good run from a lot of drivers. Giovanni Niforsi takes 13th ahead of Mark Pocock in the 13 Ferrari. David Noble with the Mercedes takes 15th ahead of Tony Whitten from South Africa. There's a bit of a moment there between, I think, Jacobs and Hughes, as Ambro takes 17th. Jacobs takes 18th. Andreas Pettersson from Sweden 19th ahead of Dimitri Stathis, Alastair Hughes. Then we've got Rickard Westin completing the top 22. Then Steve Justice, Lee Ellis, Terry Trowbridge, Peter de Jong, Zoltveher, KB Smith, and that is really about it. Mark Neutings after that unfortunate disconnect, but that was one hell of a race to start the second season of the eSENIORS GT3 World Championship here at the Circuit de Catalunya, Barcelona. Steve, it was absolutely mesmerising. Walschleiner, top of the pops, top of the pile, king of the hill, but there's round 2 next up at Mount Panorama.
Yeah, great. I mean, I can't wait to see that one. Some fantastic racing there, and thank you to the team at eSENIORS GT3 this evening. You know, the production was put together literally today. The guys put out a post on their Facebook asking if anybody could stream this evening's race, and in our very busy diaries, Alex, it was a case of, well, we've got nothing on, who wants a night off, let's have a go. So we brought Simsport Solutions in and put this stream on for you, and we couldn't have put a good stream on without some great racing, and that's what we've had tonight from the guys. So I hope everybody is excited for round 2, and I hope you guys will tune in and support this community, because it looks like they've got some good races, Alex, and there's going to be some good racing to come from them.
Indeed. So really, on behalf of Steve Proudley, my good friend Cammy Sturch, my name's Alex Goldschmidt. Thank you very much. Merci beaucoup à tous. And we'll see you next time on the eSENIORS GT3 World Championship. Next up, we head to the mountain, Mount Panorama in New South Wales in Australia. Good night for now.